Welcome to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the amazing people across the state of Mississippi who are working so hard to make this such a great place to live, work, and play. Listen, Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman is going to be joining me here in just a second. We're actually going to spend the entire show together. But you can't proceed on a day like today without making a few comments about what the anniversary is, the 19th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. It's amazing that 19 years have gone by, and I've said it many times. In some ways, it feels like it was yesterday. In other ways, it feels like it was another life. But I was president and publisher of the Sun-Herald, extremely active in the community. In the aftermath of the storm, worked very closely with Haley Barbour to form the Governor's Commission on Recovery, Rebuilding, and Renewal. And I really had a catbird seat to watch an amazing effort at the Sun-Herald to cover it and document it. My company was awarded a gold medal Pulitzer Prize as a result of the coverage. The amount of work that our employees put into helping coastal Mississippi recover, I just can't say enough amazing things about it. At one point I said, how many people at the Sun-Herald lost everything they owned? Some family members, some friends, like 67 employees. And the work that we had to embody, and what we referred to at the Sun-Herald building, Camp Hope, had resources coming in from all over the United States because we're part of the Knight Ridder chain. It was something to behold, and to watch our community come together within the context of the worst natural disaster in American history. And when I wrote, I didn't realize this until recently. I had to be reminded of this when I wrote the foreword to Haley's book, America's Great Storm. At the time, I was actually president of NOLA Media Group when I wrote that foreword, and the publisher of the Times-Picayune, who also got a Pulitzer. But it's really ironic that I was here after Katrina, and then later ended up becoming the president and publisher of the Times-Picayune in New Orleans, and to see it from both of those perspectives. One, the worst man-made disaster in American history with the levees breaking, and we know the story well, what played out in Louisiana. Then, of course, the worst natural disaster in American history with the brunt of Hurricane Katrina hitting here. And, if there's a theme for this storm, for this show, it's a lot about what we've learned since the storm, about how to be a resilient community, how we reach out to help our neighbors. And over 1,300 conversations now since I started doing this show. There's always some element about what Katrina taught us. So I could spend weeks and weeks and weeks talking about it for sure. But I think the most important thing that I would say is simply, when I was in my house, now I live next door to the house that I was literally in during Hurricane Katrina. And we had 10-foot waves hitting our house. And I did the math on how high the water was. First of all, I knew that the entire community was getting washed away, but I also realized there's a good chance that I might not make it and my family may not make it. And it was one of the most unbelievable experiences you could ever go through. And many of you listening to this show now went through the same experience. And I often said it was a good thing it was a daytime storm, because people could get on top of ice chests or grab trees. If it had been a nighttime storm, I think the death toll would have paled in comparison to what it could have been. And it was an incredible moment. And I said, if I live through this, my time at the Sun-Herald is going to be determined, or my legacy at the Sun-Herald is going to be determined by how the Sun-Herald covers the recovery effort and the work that we put into making sure that communities don't have to go through what we went through again. That means that the National Hurricane Center and others would change the way they look at hurricanes, and they have done that since, so that people can understand what the surge risk really is. They completely underestimated that for Hurricane Katrina, and a lot of people died as a result of it. So I could go on and on. It's amazing that it's been 19 years ago. What we have done in the wake of Hurricane Katrina is miraculous. And what we've learned about ourselves and fellow Mississippians is so important. One of the reasons that we have leadership programs at the chambers and at the Gulf Coast Business Council and other organizations is to try to capture the essence of what we learned and give it to the next generation so they don't have to go through what we went through. Amazing moment, 19 years ago. Wow. Okay. Now we're going to shift gears and move over to my friend, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Mississippi, Delbert Hoseman. And first of all, just say, good morning. How you doing, Delbert?
We're doing great. We're down here at the Capitol working for you.
Yeah, well, good for you. And listen, I keep up with you closely, and we'll talk about the latest within your world. But listen, you were a lawyer, in a firm, a very successful lawyer in a law firm, doing really good work when Hurricane Katrina hit. But you found ways to volunteer and help, and you have your perspective on the storm. So give us your perspective on Hurricane Katrina.
I just it pales in comparison to yours, but when we saw what had happened down there, I was a partner in Phelps Dunbar, which is a New Orleans firm, old, like 1857 New Orleans firm. So the only way I could help was to start driving a truck down to the coast. And we would load up here at the Methodist Church. We had this unbelievable line. People were just lined up, and their cars would open their trunks, and they'd have paper towels and baby goods and diapers and all that. And then out the other side, we would be loading it into these trucks. And I would drive down. You could only get gas in Hattiesburg at MDOT's place. And I went to like Moss Point and Biloxi and Gulfport, and taking one story I remember. Before, I want to say something serious, but I'll tell you the funny part first. One story, I had a little puppy. A little lab puppy. So I took the lab puppy with me in the van. Lynn was packing up stuff and everything. So I drove the truck down there. We landed with the truck in Moss Point the first time. The puppy gets out, and he's so excited to be out of the truck, he's just running around. Well, you'd think I'd let a tiger out of there or something. I thought, watch that for that dog. But then everybody started to pet the puppy. And when I went back to I can't remember the church there, right there in Biloxi and whatnot we were delivering, but everybody wanted to touch the puppy. And it was like, coming back to reality a little bit after the horrible scenes they had gone through here. And quite frankly, when I would ride around Pascagoula and whatnot, I didn't know whether we would ever get back. Really, the coast has this unique ability to recover from this. And we're not the gap between Louisiana and Alabama. You remember they called us that state?
Yeah, the landmass. They call us the landmass.
So that really pissed everybody off. So regardless of that, we built back 10 times better than either one of those have, if you look over at New Orleans or anywhere else. So I just remember going down and talking to those people and delivering those goods. And I was thinking, why are you still here? Yeah. And every one of them, they play with the puppy and everything, but then they'd talk about, we're rebuilding, my aunt's coming to help me from somewhere we're talking about what the house is going to look like. And I'm like, have you seen your house? It's not anything but a pile of rubble. And to me, it was much more uplifting to us that we're just delivering things down there than it was, I think, to the people that were there, because their resilience was catchy. We absorbed that. When I would come back and say, I believe these people are talking about rebuilding down there. And the gravitas, the heart that those people exhibited was just stunning to me. And it's exhibited for the last 19 years now. Look at what you've got down there. So there was a moment, I've talked about this before on the show, but I think it's probably one of the most compelling. Waveland clearly was, if there was a ground zero for Hurricane Katrina, it was Waveland, literally nearly wiped off the face of the earth. Yeah. There was an effort at one point to have the Stennis Institute look into bringing Bay St. Louis and Waveland together. And boy, there was a lot of resistance to that. They were pretty far, a few months down the road, and they ended up calling the whole effort off because there was literally no way the people of Waveland or Bay St. Louis was going to lose their identity in the wake of the storm. And what we came to understand, and I said it a lot in speeches that I gave, is that buildings don't make a community. People make a community. And you've seen this after tornadoes in Mississippi and so on. People just aren't willing to leave their community. Their connection to their community is part of who they are. And so you have to have that kind of a spirit to overcome the incredible challenges in the wake of something like Hurricane Katrina. And what we saw in people's willingness to overcome those things, and if you couldn't overcome them, you had people coming in from all over the country to help you overcome it. It was amazing to watch. People get, you talk about your hometown and everything, and they get this perspective based on concrete or structures or lighthouses or where they get this perspective like I'm home and I used to live over here and whatnot. Like I used to go to St. Stanislaus every summer. Well, the pier was just completely gone. And when I was delivering there, the pier was gone. The place we used to stay at St. Stanislaus and whatnot was severely damaged. And I see the points of reference in your life where you grew up and, that's where I had my first date or that's where I went and played on the beach. All of those were gone. And yet, even having lost all of their points of reference just about, they built back.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing story. We'll actually pick it up from right there when we get on the other side and as we continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We have my friend, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Mississippi, Delbert Hoseman, and we were reflecting at the beginning of the show about Hurricane Katrina and just a couple of other quick points. Coming back to this point about reference points and so much of our community being wiped away and learning that buildings don't make a community, that the people make the community. And when you came down and bringing goods and whatever else you were brought to help people in the aftermath, seeing that spirit, though, is so amazing. And when you add that spirit that we have no choice but to rebuild with the fact that leadership emerges in so many different ways at the highest levels of our state, at the Red Cross, at the chambers, and so at churches, leaders emerged in so many different ways. That to me was one of the most buoying aspects of the storm, to see people coming together with we cannot fail in the recovery. And one of the things that Haley said at the now kind of famous special session right after Hurricane Katrina, when he said, what will our kids and our kids' kids say of us? Will they say we got it? And it was a great challenge to us to say, we can't only fail ourselves, but we can't fail the generations that have come in after us. We need to make them proud. And I think, considering a tough economy and an insurance market that was really hard to deal with and all of that, man, did we overcome a lot. And man, do we have a story to tell even today, don't we, Delbert?
We do. And I actually visited with the governor earlier this week on some other matters, and he hadn't changed much. And I remembered his statement, which was that catastrophes don't create character, they reveal character. And it was a lot of character, people on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And the rest of the state too, but because about half the state was under the hurricane, but it revealed a lot of the character about the people on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. It was there, it just hadn't been challenged like that before.
One of the great things about having Marcia Barber down here almost every day, and then Haley, when he wasn't in Washington, he was here, was that they went out, they made an effort of doing this. And I had the opportunity to fly in a helicopter over to Hancock County with Marcia Barber not long after the storm. And I was touched by the way she would just drift off, and she saw people out in front of a house. She would go talk to them and hug them and be with them. But one of the, Haley often told stories of he'd be out in the middle of nowhere and people would turn the help of the state away and then direct them to people that, down these dirt roads that needed more help than they needed. And these people that they were talking to had destroyed houses. Yeah. But that's the Mississippi spirit. And, we see this. Again, Katrina revealed a lot of that character, as you just pointed out. That's one thing that Haley likes to say, and I think it's so true. But we see it all across the state, whether we're dealing with floods along the Mississippi River or any other floods that might impact us, or the tornadoes, the terrible tornadoes we've had to endure. There is that spirit. And that's, what's interesting. I love it because I've written about it. The national media likes to write about how we are divided. Mm-hmm. And after these big disasters, race doesn't matter, socioeconomic status doesn't matter. We just help our neighbor. And I personally got to witness that. I know you've been able to witness it in your official capacity as a lieutenant governor numerous times. Yeah. That's what makes Mississippi so special.
You're dead onto this, because every time we have a tornado event or something like that, I have a process. I fill up my truck with water and candy, because people can use a Snicker bar or something, and I go. Wherever it is, I go. Every time I've been to those, now it can be in Tippah County, or it can be down near Columbia, or the one that hit Rolling Fork, or the one that hit Laurel, outside of Laurel, every time I go there, there'll be a pile of rubble and an American flag on it. Just count on it. And I was roaming, I go through all this and I'll look up and there stands that American flag on top of some mobile home that's all jumbled up. And, and you look around, those people care about their country and care about each other. And it is a given. You watch every single time. We got a big neighborhood. That's what Mississippi is. And I'm honored to be a part of it.
Hey, just one other point about this. I'll share a couple of sentences that I wrote after the tornado tore through the lower Mississippi Delta. And I said this: there are prevailing false narratives about Mississippians that are too often rooted in a sad and unforgettable history that the national media and sometimes local media in the state want to repeat with seemingly daily irregularity. They drive wedges and speak of us as not having changed, as if they really they know and understand what is in the heart and souls of Mississippians. But the helpful responses of Mississippians after tragedy, and I've seen that personally after Hurricane Katrina, obliterate those narratives. Myopic journalists here and elsewhere should all put away their wedges and work harder to see and understand who we really are as a people. And while more can always be done, we have made incredible progress as Mississippi toward creating a value that embraces each other as neighbors. So anyway.
It was like that, and they're changing a little bit, Ricky, because at the Rolling Fork disaster, I showed up early the next morning, and I went into City Hall, and all the records were just spread everywhere. So I'm hauling records and putting them back in the vault. Up in the ceiling had caved in, and there was stuff all over, and boards with nails out of them. So I'm carefully carrying these things in here, and somebody from the New York Times took a picture of that and put it in the paper up there and wrote an article about how everybody showed up to support Rolling Fork, Mississippi. Now, Rolling Fork is not a very big town, and it really doesn't have very much there. But everybody came from everywhere to help Rolling Fork, Mississippi, and it didn't matter what their race, color, creed, national origin was. So it's there. What we got, I wish more people would pay attention to, but I'm really pleased to say we got it. And we've been working on some stuff for hurricanes. Before we get out of this,
yeah, sure.
I want to talk about the new initiatives that we've had, Ricky, but we'll work that into when you're ready.
Yeah, but if it's anything related to hurricanes, let's go ahead and mention that now.
All right. Well, what we did was we started a new program, and we put $5 million up this year for coastal counties, which is Hancock, Harrison, Jackson, to go to each house up to $10,000 to hurricane proof it. And put in the locks that go on the roof and all that in the windows. If you want to hurricane, you can't hurricane proof everything, but you can make it much stronger. We'll pay up to $10,000 of your repairs to do that. So in a lot of homes, the cost may be $15,000 or $18,000, but your insurance goes way down. Now, we gave this to Commissioner Cheney here at the first of the year, which our year is July 1st, and he's just going over the application process right now. So we're hopeful. We played Hurricane Roulette here for the 19 years, and, eventually there's going to be a shell in the chamber. So we're want to get started again on having you hurricane proof to much possible your home, and we will contribute $10,000 to every homeowner that does that. Then we gave another $21 million to the wind pool. I think the wind pool's got over $400 million in it, and which also came out of this and out of the earlier legislature. And we have reinsurance for about $550 million. So we're right at $1 billion of insurance that we've got for our coast citizens, which is supplemented by this new plan to hurricane proof or your particular houses. So I hope everybody will apply for that has not had, the ones that had their house completely destroyed, as you know, they had to build it under the new standards. But the others, this program will be very helpful.
Well, the wind pool, if you look at where the wind pool is today relative to other states, what we've done with the wind pool in Mississippi to make it financially viable, to be this backstop when people can't get the kind of wind and coverage that they need. it has been a real best practice, and hopefully we can continue to keep the focus on keeping it financially viable. One big storm is all it's going to take. And you mentioned reinsurance. Just one other quick point about reinsurance. People, as a general rule, don't appreciate that insurance companies have to get insurance, and the reinsurance market is a global market. And so it's not just what's happening in America, which, by the way, the number of big events have increased just about every county of the United States. But it's a global thing, what's happening globally. So that determines what's happening in terms of the pricing of reinsurance. And so, we can have good insurance experience in the United States, but there could be some big hits that are happening in other parts of the world, and that will affect our pricing. There's only so much we can do to impact that. So it really comes back to this. What can we do to minimize the risk? And that's why this grant program, this $10,000 grant program, is so important. After my experience next door, believe me, I saw what having fortification can do. It saved my family's life. In this house, when we built this house, we did it to the gold standard, where the roof is, bolted to the slab, and the more protected windows and so on. This fortification program is one of the most important things we can do to reduce risk. I'll give you an opportunity to respond to that on the other side. We're to the end of this segment, but we're talking with my friend, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Mississippi, Delbert Hoseman. And when we come back, we'll pick it up from right there. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're with the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Mississippi, Delbert Hoseman. We were reflecting on the 19th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and then that led to, it seems like every legislative session there's going to be something to do with how do we make Mississippi a more viable place to live and do business. And so things like doing $10,000 grants for fortification of people's homes so we can reduce risk. Things like making sure we protect the financial viability of something like the wind pool program, an incredibly important insurance backstop for Mississippi. There are other things, but it seems like every legislative session there's going to be something to do with that. I mentioned the reinsurance market and how we don't control a lot. Fortification is one of the main things we can control in terms of reducing risk. Did you want to respond to that, Delbert?
We had done a really good job. And we had gone from like 20,000 homes down to about 13 or 14,000, I believe, reinsurance. Things were going exceptionally well, and we put in like $21 million this year, and we've been funding it as we've gone along. So, and the premiums were funding, everything was good. And then Florida happened again and again, and Texas and again. And all of a sudden, our insurance premiums skyrocketed on the coast. They'll all tell you, you know that. So when that occurred, we have seen a growth back in our wind pool insurance again, because we were trying to get to the private market. We were hoping that eventually we'd get where we just had a pile of money as a contingency. But now we're back into selling more and more of these insurance policies to cover people who cannot afford to get there by, as you mentioned, fortifying and hurricane your homes. Your insurance premiums drop significantly. And so I'm real hopeful. This is in response to the skyrocketing insurance claims that have started down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast in the last 2 years, really. Based on, you're right, it's a national amount of money, and when they get really hurt in Florida, it hurts us too. So we've experienced significant cost runs, and I'm hopeful that this program will help us some.
Listen, I mentioned to you before we started our conversation, it's fun. And I think it's important, too, to follow what our state leaders are doing when there's not a legislative session going on. And you can't refer to a non-legislative session time as downtime, because it's clear you are a busy man. In any given day, you're giving a speech or traveling or visiting some community somewhere in Mississippi. But there's no rest for the weary when you're trying to be a lieutenant governor that's focused on solving problems. And, that's where all your energy is, isn't it?
It is, and I have been from Ripley to Van Cleve last week. I was at Van Cleve High School meeting with the superintendent, and your principal is doing a great job, by the way. And their school's tremendous. And so yesterday I was in Ripley and Belmont, which is in Tishomingo County way north. I just learned so much more by being out and listening to people. And I'm particularly concerned about two or three things. On the, I'll say smaller side, but reasonable side, cell phone usage in schools is costing our children a huge amount of knowledge. We have significant increases in chronic absenteeism. On cell phone usage, we have major acts of depression on almost 30% of our young ladies now. And it's directly related to when we started the cell phone use. So like in Van Cleve, you put your cell phones in a sock when you go to class, which is good. Marshall County has said when you come in, you put them in your locker in a little bag, and that's it for the day. So we're encouraging schools to do that. Our chronic absentee rate has skyrocketed, Ricky. We went to 28% of our kids were absent after COVID. We're now down to about 24%. So 1 in every 4 kids is not in school right now. So I've been visiting with the schools around on what we're going to do about that and how we get our children back. If their seat's not in the seat, I know they're not learning, or what they're learning is not going to make them run a paper. So we have significant issues with chronic absenteeism we want to address this year. There are a number of different things, but our overall, the state is in the best shape we've ever been in. And I just even hesitate to talk about that. We paid off $1.2 billion in debt. We have cut taxes by $500 million. We've cut business taxes by another couple of $100 million. We want to cut the grocery tax this year. We're building roads from Goshen north. We're building them around Diamond Head. We're building them in North Mississippi, new highways that are funded by state dollars entirely, with no federal dollars. We have 3 new highways in North Mississippi. So you're seeing our education is now 30th. We used to be 50th or 49th. So you're seeing results, I think, of having a very good economy and a stable workforce and good legislative leaders, your coastal leaders and others. So you're really seeing the state in a unique position. We are in the best shape we've ever been in. We've never paid off $1 billion in debt and cut taxes in the history of the state. And then had our education system basically go from 50th to 30th. So I'm real encouraged about the trajectory that our state is on. And you can see that's why people come and build the biggest AI plant in the world up here north of Jackson. You see the newest steel aluminum mill going in, the largest battery plant. You see all this happening in Stennis. There's a reason for that. And the reason is we're economically stable. We have great people. Our people are our best asset. We have great people. We've got our debt is diminishing, a conservative judiciary. We've got all these things set. Our climate is great. We're just in a unique position. If we can get our labor force participation rate, Ricky, up to about 60%, we're about 54. So that means we're missing out there in the real world, we're missing about 100,000 people that could be working. And we need to have them educated enough. This year we'll propose tuition-free community college, last dollar tuition-free community college, other ways to get them up to the knowledge level to take these jobs that are higher compensated ones. So we're on the right track right now. And that goes from the governor to the constable. I mean, everybody's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, when I was listening this morning, just thinking through the kind of things that you had to think about, I'll just list a few things. This constant focus on education reform and how we can make it better. You alluded to that, infrastructure improvements. There's always going to be so many needs and only so much money, and understanding how to prioritize that. Criminal justice reform, and really thinking about how we can give support to the sheriffs and police chiefs all across the state of Mississippi to make it safer. Economic development, healthcare, the participation rate of our workforce, something you really is zeroed in on. I mean, none of these are easy. All of these are hard, and there are always going to be challenges in all of them. And I think the fact that you had great success as a lawyer and this ability to compartmentalize, there's a lot to think about, isn't there?
There is a lot. And when we focus, we try to focus where we're going to get the best rate of return, just like you did when you ran your companies. And last year, we devoted over $130 million to the Mississippi Gulf Coast, all from Diamond Head to Gulfport to wherever. All those got new structures, new things, new road. whatever. There was a new center for businesses. All of those things happened on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And the reason is that will produce a lot of income. I mean, it's just like anything. You invest where you're going to get a rate of return. And investments in the coast have had significant rates of return for this state. And it's not all just gaming. I mean, we're building the conning towers for submarines and all kinds of stuff down there. I was in two businesses in Ocean Springs, Ricky. One of them does the best grinding of eyeglasses in the world in Ocean Springs. They make them all for the Veterans Administration, but they have the latest equipment and everything, and they're making 1,500 to 2,000 pair. They're fixing to go to 5,000 pair of glasses that they make with the most high-tech equipment in the world. It's amazing to watch how they do it. Next door was something you'd be interested in. Next door was a bait company. They design baits. And they make the baits for Bass Pro, all these other, and they design these baits and they actually carve them out of steel and make thousands of these little rubber things that you fish with. That's next door to each other in the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So we're doing eyeglasses, conning towers for submarines, making baits for people to fish, all right there. And that's just an example of three. So we invest in the coast because the rate of return on the coast is significant to this state.
Yeah, you have to know. You got to know where you can continue to make your big bets, because the return has shown over time. You got your blue chip industries that are part of Stennis, hospitality, and all of what's surrounding Chevron and Ingalls and all of that, and how that all comes together. Man, it's important. And by the way, by improving the economic situation for all of Mississippi, it helps all of Mississippi. I mean, the data is just really improving. We'll actually talk a little bit more about that part when we come back on the other side as we continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman. We'll see you after this break.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank studio, as we continue to celebrate our great state and continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hoseman. Listen, Delbert, I say this on my outdoor show every single Monday, that Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America. Does seasons is approaching. We've got, all the families and friends coming together for that great tradition. We're all preparing. I saw a picture of you, next to your tractor. Yeah, I'm assuming making a food plot somewhere.
That's right.
What a great tradition in Mississippi as we all sort of work. Because as you and I have discussed before, I mean, it's great to be able to harvest a deer or shoot a duck or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's the time we're spending, that divine experience of being out in nature and the connection we have with that and our families and our friends. That's what it's really about. And we're lucky to be here, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think there's a family and friends aspect to this, but you're right. When you're running your tractor and bush hogging or whatever, it's one-on-one experience with Earth. And I look forward to this part of the year. You're right. I was working on expanding my food plots. I don't even shoot them anymore. We take the kids up there and the grandchildren. But I don't really ever do that anymore. But the change of the seasons in Mississippi, and you watch cotton being harvested and corn and soybeans will be a little bit later. You watch all that going, hunting season, football season, and everything. This is part of our culture. This is who makes us. We're really agriculture. We're land-based, water-based people on the coast. That's what's part of our culture. And when those seasons evolve like that, we get out of this horrible heat and hopefully miss a hurricane. Those evolve into really a rejuvenation of an appreciation of where we are and what we're living in. We're living in the best agricultural place in the world, in the Mississippi Delta. It's got its challenges, as you well know. You go up there a lot. We still have this huge economic sphere that the coast is and the North Mississippi is and all the rest of them. So we have all of this going on, and we always come back and reconnect with nature at this time of the year. And so I just the thought that we're all going to be back in the fields and you visit with friends you don't see a lot during the year and start talking about what you did last year and what you're going to do next year.
Hey, let me tell you what I did yesterday. I went out yesterday and put my crab traps out.
Yeah.
We have a big tradition for Labor Day weekend is Ann's family, who are all from the Point of Biloxi, the Bahanoviches, they're all second generation Croatians, but we come together and we do a big crab boil. And so I was out putting out the crab traps. And when I came back, I told Ann, I said, Ann, that I felt like I was meditating, even though it was work. Just being on the water, putting the crab trap. Jordan has 2 kids, and they went to catch some mullet late yesterday afternoon, and he already checked the crab traps. I'd only put them out like 2 hours ago when he checked them. I already had 5 in them, but it's just the experience of that, being able to share that with the grandkids and having them go with me. And buddy, you know how important that is.
It is, and I tell you, of course, the financial part's a lot because we make a lot of money out of farming and doing this other. But the mental part is even more important to me because the farmers have that beginning and end, and farmers are the biggest gamblers. You think they're on the coast. The farmers are the biggest gamblers in Mississippi. So they start with, oh my goodness, and everything could fail, and then they end up having a successful crop. They're in a good humor. All of us are joining our families for these hunting experiences or football weekends or going to Southern or whatever. So it just becomes part of, like I say, it's part of our culture, Ricky, and it's a part that I appreciate, and I don't know that a lot of other places in this world have it.
Listen, I had the opportunity to actually attend a Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks Commission meeting last month. First one, I've never even set foot in that building before that I'm aware of. And it was terrific to actually get to see so many people who have been on my show and get to be there with the new commissioners being signed in and all of that. It was really, really good. A very positive thought. And then, of course, I got to watch the reports. And, there's so much pride in that agency as they work to improve ducks and deer and turkeys and all the work that they're doing in the state lakes. I loved hearing the update on the capital improvements in our state parks. I mean, that we're finally doing what we need to do to make our state parks competitive. And man, with that happening now, we're spending tens of millions of dollars. You help lead that effort. We've got something to be thankful for. It's something to be proud of, and the future is really bright for Mississippi State Parks, aren't they?
They are. I never could get a good number, Ricky, and I'm a tax lawyer, so I wanted numbers. So finally, I sent individual architects out to every state park and had them come back and tell me what needed to be done at every single one of them. And the number was about $160 million. Like our pads were too short, the electricity didn't work, the bathrooms broke, all of that stuff. So we started, I think we're about 40 or 50 million into it right now, and we're appropriating about 10 million a year. They're getting some match numbers. They finished Roosevelt. We picked the top 5 parks, and we're funding each of those, and I get a spreadsheet how far they are along and everything. And every year we're contributing a bunch of money to it. So we're going to have first-class parks in Mississippi.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really amazing to hear the detail of each plan with the improved RV facilities and the cabins and what's in them. They're competitive with anything you'd rent out in the general market if you're going on a vacation.
Night, you can get a big screen TV, 2 bedrooms, and a fire pit and a whole lake.
That's amazing. Hey, Delbert Hoseman, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
Thank you, Ricky. Have a great season.
You bet. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.